printed money.
Well, whatever.
Whatever.
We're still gonna pay for it, trust me.
We're paying
Yeah.
for it, one way or another, and that's, I mean, it sickens me.
But it should sicken all of us, but it's control. That's what it's all about, not money, control, right?
Well, I don't know what the difference is, but.
The big difference, control, they tell you how to live, eat, sleep, drink, breathe, where you can do what. That's called slavery if it's a synonym.
If they take away your money, though, you're in the same situation, so.
Yeah, well, or devalue it to the point where it's worthless, either way. Anyway, anybody else? Again, Ed.
Sorry. During your research, did you see any connection between Obama's executive order to start the rural council? And is that money from that, not as the money, is the influence from that executive order part of the leveraging of that federal money that's coming in? Did you ever see that in your?
I have not seen that. Doesn't mean that there is or isn't a connection. I just have not personally seen that. One thing I did see is the executive board of Policy Link has been to the White House between them about 150 times.
Because HUD is listed on the rural council.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a link or not. I can't give you an answer either way.
So even if we say no and not sign it, still they're going to do the same thing regionally. So really, they're only making people sign it so they can more easily sue, more easily
Well, one of the
control.
requirements of the program is that at least 50% of the population of the district has to be committed to this.
Has to be represented.
So if locally you get enough towns not
Represented, you
They
mean.
lose the grant.
That's why they're redistributing. Gerrymandering. It's pretty obvious.
And it says that it's in the grant.
It's in the grant
People around, they
application,
get
at
the
least
minority, get the
50%
majority
of
of
the
the vote.
population of the geographic
Beautiful.
area, and in our case, it's the entire state of New Hampshire, needs to be committed.
And how many do we have?
Really?
I don't know yet.
We don't know.
Right there. Here's your population base.
Can I follow up?
Just get one pull.
Can I follow up? What's the percentage now?
We don't
Oh,
know.
we don't know. You said that. Okay.
We don't know what the percentage is, but the large cities have all signed.
Rochester hasn't signed.
Rochester has not signed, but I believe Manchester and Nashua,
Well, yes.
yeah, have signed.
What does that get you to 50% or pretty close?
I don't know.
And I can understand the large cities doing it because of the way that it will benefit them with that kind of design and the monies that they need, because larger cities are tapped for money. They have a higher population, they have more costs for fire, police, ambulance, welfare. They have that issue, so they're going to look and grab for anything. And the way that they're packaging it, it makes it look like it's a godsend to them. And it isn't until later on that it's going to come back and bite them.
Well, one of the issues talking about this program is the encouragement of regionalization of government.
One should have our votes crushed by population centers.
Yes.
So we're going back to
So
Kings
the
and
large
Dukes
cities
and
would have the
counts.
say.
That's been going on for so long. Well, anyway, anybody else?
I got just a quick question. Given what you found out in your investigation, why don't we see something in the newspapers about the downside of this, or have I just been asleep?
The first night, after the first night that we got our Windham Board of Selectmen to postpone a decision, that they meet on Monday. On that Wednesday, there was a front page story in the Union Leader and in the Eagle Tribune that discussed that. I don't remember if there was a story after the second as well.
But what we did see was very strategically placed stories about how great the regional planning commissions do. And I can't say this for sure, but I think Action Media might have had some influence in placing certain articles in the papers.
Right.
I don't have the documentation, but that's just my feeling that that is possible.
Who's Action Media? Are they coming in?
Yeah, they'll probably be part of the Action Media is the
PR firm.
PR firm that's gonna sell this to us.
Now, just one comment on Action Media. The Regional Planning Commission member told us, oh, you know, regional planning commissions are notoriously bad for PR, so we hired a PR firm. One question I have is the PR firm is based in Minnesota. Aren't there PR firms in New Hampshire they could have hired? So.
I don't know, you remember that Portland plan I mentioned? I read this a long time ago, that was a pilot program for a nationwide plan that was going to be attempted. And I didn't give it an awful lot more thought until Ed started with this. I was reading about that 7 years ago. And then Ed started bringing this to my attention, and it jogged my memory about the Portland project in Portland, Oregon, where they actually implemented all of these things all around Oregon. That's where they started this, and a pilot program to watch how it worked. And evidently it worked out there because they're here now doing this. It's pretty fascinating, really.
Well, you have to ask yourself, what are the true goals of this program?
Slavery.
And then ask yourself, why would you want to be a part of that? Why would you want to be complicit in that kind of planning? Whether or not the federal government is going to force it upon us or not when the plans are done. If you know what the ultimate goals are, do you want to be a part of that or not?
It's going to be pretty hard to keep
Has
alive.
anybody brought this up to our state,
Yes.
to our representatives and our senators?
Yes, in fact, I've been putting together a list of, a coalition of people that we're building across the state. And those people are activists, and I say that in a positive term. They're ordinary citizens like myself and Eileen who are committed to bring education to whoever is willing to listen across the state. And we've found people across the state, and I have 14 or 15 legislators right now that are part of that group.
What about our U.S. representatives and senators?
Well, to be quite honest, I haven't approached them yet.
And I'm not so sure, our congressman is Congressman Bass, and he was on the Climate Action Commission for the governor in 2009. So.
Yeah. Wow.
So, if I recall, SB 342, which is the Affordable Housing Bill, that was at least explained as codifying a court ruling that was in Chester, I think. Somebody maybe can correct me if I'm wrong. So some number of years ago, there was a court case about affordable housing in Chester, and the court ruled that there had to be opportunities for affordable housing. Eventually, that made it as a law, a state law, that all communities had to abide by that court ruling, essentially. And so the RSA's got changed to reflect that court ruling. Is that what we should expect to happen here as well? They're going to do this push, they're going to collect the data, they're going to pick an area that's ripe for them to get a victory in the courts, get a court victory against some town, and then go to the state legislature and say that now you should be pushing this as a state law, make it clear to everybody, and then get all the towns to rewrite their zoning to support whatever their agenda is.
You're talking about workforce housing, right?
No.
It's what he's talking
Yes,
about.
the affordable. I mean, I think that was I'm drawing the analogy to how that got pushed on us and forced us to change our zoning.
Okay.
May I comment on that?
Please.
Now, everything that I've said tonight, I can point back to all of their documentation in their words. So this is speculation. But I can still point back to their words. Ron Sims, then Deputy Secretary of HUD, at the time of the settlement, Ron Sims said they want to use the Westchester case as a model across the country for inclusive housing across the country. So I agree with you. I'm very concerned. We are being asked to be complicit with undermining our own property rights by providing the data to them, because this is a collection of, this is a huge collection of data. that we will turn over to them, that they have final analysis of reports in their legally binding agreements that have been signed. And they will analyze that data and compare it to the analysis of impediments, which is also part of this agreement, which makes reference to impediments to fair housing, and there will be many impediments to fair housing. Anita and I really didn't get into many things. What we talked about tonight is the tip of the iceberg. Honest to God. We spent hundreds of hours on this stuff, and it was extremely painful to try to put it down into what we consider to be bite-sized chunks, to just give you just a snapshot of the huge broad scope of this program. It's frightening to me because over the past few years, I've formed an extreme appreciation of what our founding fathers put together in those documents that they wrote. I had no idea until I started to see what was going on in our country now, you know, the enormous insight that they had. And it's all being undermined with our current government. And I'm here out of love for my country, because I believe that we are participating in the destruction of that government. And it's so bothersome. I do come to you with great respect, because the ultimate decision is yours. And I am appreciative that you allowed us to come here and share our concerns and our thoughts, because ultimately we're all in it together. This is a national program. Think about the implications of this. This is not just Brookfield. This is not just Windham. This is not just New Hampshire. And if what you said, sir, is true, and I truly believe that that's where we're going with this, because this is the collection part of the data. This is the beginning part. There's two parts. Before you can implement a plan, you got to make the plan. Think about, according to the HUD secretary, so this is a model for the rest of the country. They'll literally be able to flip a switch and go into the, quote, opportunity areas, their words, not mine, and use that for inclusive zoning. Now think about that. You could literally have lawsuits all across the country spring up overnight because someone like myself could form a nonprofit, bring a lawsuit against the town, say according to the analysis of impediments, this town has taken HUD money, they are not conforming to the Fair Housing Act, and I'm suing. HUD will step in and take over that lawsuit, and I'll get millions of dollars as part of the settlement.
So if we don't take money, at this point in the game, we're probably immune to suit for taking money and not complying.
I believe that statement is correct. But I also believe, and this is where the difficult part's going to come for people in elected positions like yourselves going forward in the future. I truly believe that the federal government will blackmail you into accepting their terms, because they're going to say, you want your roads fixed? And you gotta sign.
They don't fix our roads now.
I'm 62, they can't, there's nothing they can find to blackmail me, I don't care. I got a truck, I'll drive on bumpy roads.
Entice, carrots, whatever.
Nothing they can
Don't they have access to data already through the census information?
No, the kinds of stuff they're talking about, there's an organization in North Carolina, should I talk about that?
I think you should.
It's called Cedar Grove Sustainability Institute. And the Cedar Grove Sustainability Institute was started by demographers who use GIS mapping data to determine areas of institutionalized segregation and discrimination.
All based upon demographic data.
All based upon mapping
That's
data.
it.
And they went into one town, they said, well, all the poor people live in the area where you don't have town water and sewer, so you must have some sort of institutionalized segregation that causes the poor people to live in the area without town water and sewer. You know, conversely, you think, well, maybe the people who are poor can't afford the housing that has the town water and sewer, but that's not how it was.
So ultimately, is the theory then, to begin with, well, let's make a nice equitable law, and then ultimately to start confiscating some of the properties where the wealthy people live, and then put the poor people there, and perhaps place the
Well,
wealthy people where there are no
No,
sewers? I mean, what's the deal?
Just in the Westchester case, they did put affordable housing in Rye, New York. It's one of the wealthiest areas. Second in command in HUD goes out there, and it's on, I guess, the town line. It's very near the town line, and the next town is a more, middle-class area. And their argument was, it doesn't look like Rye, it's not in the right spot. So they're going to be dictating where the right spot is. I think that's the theory, that in certain areas they'll dictate, we want you to put the affordable housing here.
You know what's funny? I come from this very rural area. It was like this when I was young, but it turned into a city when I grew up. And what you're talking about was called the projects. And if anybody's familiar with those kind of things, they were all beautiful and new and wonderful when they were built, and then 5 years later they look like the oldest, most wrecked thing on the planet. I mean, it's just a simple fact, and they tear it down and build another project, and 5 years later, after it was destroyed, they tear it down and build another project, and I watched that go on all through my young life. So that's what we're in store for, I guess.
And on a different note, in the NOFA, the funding notification, it's a 70-page document. They said 11% of your grant application has to go towards non-traditional governance.
Right.
When you substitute the word non-constitutional, that's what it means, non-constitutional governance.
To mean 2 votes for the guy with nothing?
That's the kind of stuff, yeah.
It means transferring your authority to a regional governance.
So if I,
So 11% of the money in the grant application, it said 11% of the grant money had to go towards non-traditional governance. And that's very concerning, because I found a lot of documents and a lot of papers talking about, there was one Harvard paper I saw written about 8-9 years ago, and it talked about using new governance through land planning.
Right. But we didn't bring that up tonight
Because we didn't have
we wanted to maintain that everything we said is all based upon the government's information. But we've found through our extensive research that there's really some key players here that have been part of other organizations. It's not as big and vast as you might think. Some of these people who are a part of boards or committees for one of these partners, they could be affiliated with multiple partners.
They cross-pollinate among different nonprofits. They have the similar boards. And then you have committees, like Regional Planning Commission, it sits on the Water Sustainability Commission. This person sits on this commission, and this person sits on this commission. So it's a relatively small group.
Just, again, go back to your history books and remember, every socialist party, every communist party, every fascist party have leaders, and those leaders control the populace. You're always going to have rich people, and they're going to ensure that they stay rich by making sure everybody else stays poor.
on that note, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And after the meeting is over, anybody's certainly welcome to stay here and carry on conversation. Perfectly acceptable to me. I'm just not going beyond 9 o'clock.
I'm saturated. No, I'm saturated.
Yeah, we're saturated.
Croc TV.